What's up, my guys and geeks? Star Wars is one of, if not the most popular science fiction movie universe in history. And Stranger Things has rapidly in recent years become one of the most popular Netflix TV shows of all time. And it's pretty widely regarded that these two fictional universes are entirely separate. However, in light of the latest episode of The Mandalorian, I have decided to dive in and show you why, at the end of the day, I truly believe that Star Wars and Stranger Things may take place in the same universe. Before we get into this seemingly outlandish theory, be sure to let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Do you think there's at least a chance that Star Wars and Stranger Things could take place in the same universe? Make sure you let me know down below. Okay, so right off the bat, this obviously seems rather ridiculous, but my reason for connecting Star Wars and Stranger Things is specifically that both have recently introduced us to a form of neural technology, or a neural creature in the case of Stranger Things, called the Mind Flayer.
The Mind Flayer's back.
Upload me to a Mind Flayer.
So in this video, I'm going to look at what the Mind Flayer is in Stranger Things, what the Mind Flayer is in Star Wars, and then show why I believe it's the same Mind Flayer and why we're actually looking at the same universe. Now, first, what is the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things? So the Mind Flayer is basically the main villain of Stranger Things Season 2 and Season 3, and it's basically been described as this kind of particulate entity from the upside down, which is kind of like an alternate dimension in Stranger Things.
Upside down.
Exactly.
And essentially the upside down is a mirror version of Hawkins, Indiana, where the main story of Stranger Things takes place. And the Mind Flayer has the ability to influence other creatures. It controls other creatures from the upside down through the hive mind. In Season 3, it was able to break through to the real world and create itself its own body out of, to be a bit graphic, out of the flesh of other creatures.
Oh, gross, 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 gross!
But it was able to create its own body. It's been influencing things from the upside down and from Hawkins, Indiana. And in Season 4, it's revealed that Vecna actually created the Mind Flayer as an inspiration based upon his inspiration by Black Widow spiders when he was a child.
Vecna's his 5-star general.
And that he formed these particles into the Mind Flayer, and he's been manipulating everything since day one. However, that doesn't necessarily preclude the fact that the Mind Flayer could possibly have its own sentience. When Vecna arrived in the Upside Down, these particles that make up the Mind Flayer already existed on their own. And as shown by the fact that some of these particles were off in Russia and inhabited the Demogorgons over in Russia, Vecna isn't always necessarily aware of everything that every particle of the Mind Flayer is doing.
This is confusing.
And since the Mind Flayer predates, presumably, Vecna's finding it in the Upside Down, since it presumably predates the entire history of Hawkins and everything that's going on there, it is conceivable that there could be another way to access the Mind Flayer, that another group could have accessed some of the Mind Flayer's particles and used that to create technology. And I believe that technology is the Mind Flayer from the Star Wars universe.
This all seems pretty far-fetched.
Now, the Mind Flayer was first mentioned in an episode of Mandalorian Season 1, and over the seasons it's been vaguely referenced, but we finally got to see it up close and in person in Season 3, Episode 3 of The Mandalorian, where the scientist Dr. Pershing is captured by the New Republic, and he is sentenced to have his mind wiped by the Mind Flayer. And from the way Dr. Pershing refers to the Mind Flayer, it's obvious that this is a piece of Imperial technology that the New Republic has retrofitted. And the way it's explained is that it essentially it interacts with the subject's mind, and then it alters their memories. So in both universes, we see that the Mind Flayer works as some kind of neural interface. In Stranger Things, it influences Will and it influences creatures in Hawkins and it influences the creatures of the Upside Down throughout a neural network, and it creates a hive mind that connects all the creatures of the Upside Down.
We know it's connected to the hive mind.
And in Star Wars, we see that it's able to get inside people's minds and alter their perception of things and erase memories, which is extremely similar to what it's able to do in Stranger Things. Now, of course, we don't really visit Earth within the Star Wars universe. We have humans within Star Wars, but they all come from different planets, and none of them come from Earth. So it is conceivable that Earth does exist somewhere in the Star Wars galaxy, and that on that Earth there is Hawkins, Indiana. And of course you're going to ask, well, how can there be pop culture references in Stranger Things to Star Wars as an entirely separate thing if Star Wars actually exists in the same universe?
Yeah, what you said.
Now, it's understood that in the Star Wars universe, we are receiving the majority of our narration, at least in the main films, from R2-D2, that he has memory cataloged all of the events of the main films in the Star Wars universe, and that he is the one communicating them to us. So it's conceivably possible that all this advanced technology existed in the greater Star Wars galaxy, but not on Earth. In an earlier time period, R2-D2 recorded the entire events of the Star Wars movies, and somehow a copy of that information found its way to Earth. And in this universe, George Lucas would have somehow received that information, somehow received a copy of R2-D2's narrations, and would have been inspired to turn it into his own fictional universe.
Makes sense.
So then Star Wars and Stranger Things would be this interconnected universe. And of course, we've seen the Empire and we've seen Emperor Palpatine do a lot of interacting with kyber crystals and the spirit world and the world between worlds, where they're able to time travel and go into alternate realities.
The doorway between worlds.
So ultimately, I believe it's possible that the Empire developed the technology to break into an alternate dimension. They captured some of the particles of the Mind Flayer centuries before Vecna even arrived in the Upside Down and the events of Stranger Things took place. They took these particles from the Mind Flayer and they developed the Mind Flayer technology for the Empire. And that would explain why these two seemingly unconnected universes both have an extremely specific neural interface known as the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer in Star Wars is simply a technologically reproduced version of the particles that make up the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things. So they're all connected, and I, for one, would love to get to see our Stranger Things characters have a crossover with the Mandalorian or some of his Jedi friends.
It's the way.
So, alright, that's our theory for today. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this theory. Do you think it's too outlandish, they'll never go for it? Or do you think there's hope that we could actually get Star Wars and Stranger Things confirmed in the same universe? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so you know the next time I've got a crazy Star Wars theory for you. If you want to see my breakdown and review of episode 3 of Mandalorian season 3, you can click on this side of the screen. And if you want to see my top 20 Harry Potter characters ranked, you can click on this side of the screen. But you're going to have to decide in 3 seconds because the video is about to end. Adios!